In this world, ladies and gentlemen, there are two kinds of horror stories. There are the horror stories that occur in a dark room, and you're wondering whether or not you're actually alone. And there's the kind of horror stories that happen after purchasing a $1.3 million home. And I'm gonna be honest with you, in this economy, I know which one I'd rather take my chances with. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Melody. This channel's called Melody Ever After, where we talk about all things freaky, geeky, and spooky. Today, we are talking about The Haunting of 657 Boulevard, a gorgeous suburban McMansion in Westfield, New Jersey, who isn't haunted by a spirit, but by an entity known as the Watcher. We're going to be talking about my opinions about this psychotic pen pal from hell who made sure this house's owners would never feel like they were at home sweet home ever again. I want to start out by saying that being stalked or being watched, that's like in my top list of fears. I did a video about frogging, about people hiding inside your home. That's scary. That kind of stuff freaks me out more than ghosts, demons, spirits, whatever. I don't like the idea of people watching me is a no-go, okay? My mom always told me when I was scared of monsters in my closet that the only monsters in this world are real people. And I live by that to this day as a grown woman. John and Andrea Woods bought the original Watcher house in Westfield, New Jersey for $370,000. That sounds like a ton of money because it absolutely is. But the thing is, inflation is a bitch. For over 20 years, the Woods lived there completely peacefully. It wasn't until 20 years later when they sold the house to the new owners, Derek and Maria Broaddus, for $1.3 million. A little bit more than $1.3 million, actually. I think that's the world's biggest scam. You buy a house for $370,000 and you turn around 20 years later and sell it for $1.3 mil? Okay. Whatever, infinite money glitch, I guess. Sorry I wasn't buying up real estate in 1990, I wasn't even conceived yet. When the Woodses sold the house to the Broadduses, there was this weird transitional period, as there is with most real estate situations, where the Broadduses were making some changes to the home, doing some renovations, the Woodses hadn't moved out fully yet, there was some transition, okay? These people were in and out. The Broadduses, who were the subject of the Watcher, hadn't quite moved into the house fully when these letters started coming in. The first letter was addressed to the Broaddus family, and it said, "Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming." Okay, interesting. That's kind of weird. This letter arrived in the mail. It wasn't your typical note left on the front stoop with a batch of cookies or anything like that. It wasn't like a Jehovah's Witness pamphlet shoved in the crack of the door. This was an unaddressed letter that was put in the mailbox, which is immediately creepy to me. Now, the original, quote-unquote original, the first owners of the house, the Woodses, said, "Oh yeah, we did receive some weird letters like that, but we just shrugged it off. We just thought it was some crazy guy." They were not in the business of being the next protagonist of a Scooby-Doo movie, so they just kind of shrugged it off. They also conveniently forgot to tell the Broadduses about the mysterious letters that they had gotten. But I mean, who doesn't love a mysterious handwritten note by a multi-generational stalker? Am I right? Sounds like the dream to me. Derek and Maria Broaddus had moved in all of 3 days, and again, I don't think they were staying there the entire time. They were going in and out because there were some renovations going on, according to several reports. They had 3 children with them. Within 3 days, this house became the psychological escape room of your nightmares. On June 5th, 2014, Derek, the husband, goes out to check the mail and he sees a crisp, clean, cream-colored envelope, handwritten with some very interesting handwriting. Inside was a message that seemed a little bit weird. "How did you end up here? Did 657 Boulevard call to you with its force within?" The letter went on to say more creepy shit, because of course it did. "I see already that you have flooded 657 Boulevard with contractors so that you can destroy the house as it was supposed to be. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Bad move." Alright, we got Lemony Snicket on the track. If you're gonna be a stalker, let's not get all Discord mod about it. That's me personally. This guy thought he was hot shit.
Kitten, I see you're
changing things with contractors inside my precious 657 Boulevard. It would be a shame if you destroyed the integrity of the house. You better not be painting anything millennial gray, kitten. The worst part is that this letter went on to reference the Honda minivan that they had and the contractors they'd hired, which means this wasn't an online stalker. And given that this was hand-delivered, non-addressed to the mailbox, which I think is a felony, by the way, it was proof that this was not an online stalker. This was someone physically watching them. Then the watcher dropped the most deranged mic drop of the century. "Do you need to fill the house with the young blood?" I requested. "Better for me. Was your old house too small for the growing family, or was it greed to bring me your children?" If you're calling my kids young blood, I'm turning around, I'm calling my real estate agent. "Hello. We need to resell this house. Well, let's go find a different $1.3 million home. Okay, we can do a little bridge loan, don't you think?" So the investigation commences, and the Broadduses call the Woodses, who sold them the house, and they're like, "Yellow, what the hell?" And the Woodses are like, "Oh yeah, that did happen, but we just kinda ignored it. Didn't think it was too important." Well, everybody went to the police, and all the detectives were like, "Hey, it's best if we don't bring this up to any of the neighbors. Don't go around trying to figure out who this is." Which is like the worst possible advice you can get if you ever want to sleep soundly again. Because the first thing I would do would be like sneaking around, looking in the windows, trying to see who's watching me. The police zeroed in on a main suspect named Michael Langford, who was an old guy next door. Langford was eccentric, and he lived with his mother, and people described him as a Boo Radley type character, which in 2014 is a really weird thing to say. Langford denied stalking or leaving anything in the Broadduses' mailboxes, so the police couldn't prove anything because there was no DNA found on the envelope that matched any of the DNA in their bank. The second letter arrived, and this one was even worse than the first. "Have they found what's in the walls yet? In time they will." The letter went on to say more creepy shit. "I am pleased to know your names now, and the name of the young blood you have brought me." Oh great, so you know my kids' names. That's cool. That is so awesome. This all happened within the span of one singular month, okay? By the end of the month, the police were like, "Do I look like I know anything? I don't know anything." A former FBI profiler analyzed the letters and concluded that the writer was likely older, educated, non-macho, whatever that means, and probably a voracious reader. Interesting. But the Broadduses were not getting anywhere with the police, so they hired their own private investigator to take things into their own hands. The letters did not stop all the way into July, and they went from being a little bit menacing to just being full-on terrifying and threatening. Some famous quotes are, "Maybe a car accident, maybe a fire, maybe something as simple as a mild illness that never seems to go away but makes you feel sick day after day after day after day." Another quote says, "Maybe the mysterious death of a pet. Loved ones suddenly die. Planes and cars and bicycles crash. Bones break." Huh? That's a threat. That is a threat. Is that not a terroristic statement, right? I would think that once the letters got threatening, we would be able to maybe subpoena DNA, like fingerprints or something, from the surrounding neighbors that could view the house. Like, I don't know why, because now we have a threat on the line. I don't know the laws. I'm a YouTuber, not a lawyer. But I feel like we should have been able to subpoena some information. Eventually, the Broadduses gave up. They ended up renting out the house until they could sell it at a loss for $900,000. I mean, it sucks that they lost money, but like, come on, dude. $900,000? Do you know how many of my houses? I could buy the whole block for $900,000, dude. But it's interesting that the watcher was so persistent about, "Oh, you're changing the house. I'm the watcher of the house. I'm the house watcher. Bada bing, bada boom. I watch the house. That's what I do." And then the Broadduses give up. They retreat. They put up their white flag. A new family moves in, and reportedly no letters. So to me, it feels targeted. It doesn't feel like it's about the house. At that point, it feels like it's about the Broadduses. Some of the biggest criticisms in this mystery are, why didn't they put up any cameras? I want to say that security cameras were expensive, but I do think they probably had the funds to buy them, if they had the funds to buy a $1.3 million home. But they definitely weren't as user-friendly as they are today, okay? The Ring cameras with the apps on your phone, it wasn't really like that. It was more like having digital footage. If they weren't living in the house, I can kind of see why you wouldn't put up cameras if you weren't living there, but Yeah, but you probably should have got some cameras. To this day, nobody knows who the watcher was. DNA tests, surveillance, interviews were all dead ends. The theories range from a disgruntled neighbor who was angry over the renovations or was jealous of the house, a local bored sociopath, a very long, not so practical joke, even that the Broadduses were writing their own letters to exacerbate the first few letters that they got. Again, I don't want to victim blame, but that's just one of the popular theories. A lot of people say that it was an inside job. In my opinion, I think the scariest part of this story is that the watcher, in the end of the day, could have been anybody. I don't really think that it was the Broadduses doing it. I think it was probably one of the neighbors. I really do. In my opinion, I think all the investigation, all the national attention drawn toward the house probably just scared him off at the end of the day. My name is Melody. This channel is called Melody Ever After, and on this channel, I do commentary videos about all sorts of things freaky, geeky, and spooky. So if that sounds like it would be something that would interest you, check me out. I would really appreciate it if you left a like or comment on this video if you liked it. In the meantime, keep your curtains closed, and I'll see you in the next one. Until next time, guys.